And yeah, so dynamic routes. The second version of the application shown in example 2.2 adds a second route that is dynamic. When you visit the dynamic URL in your browser, you're presented with a personalized greeting that includes the name provided in the URL. So this is the example 2.2, and hello.py. So we have, did we not do this, Sess? I don't know. So we have, we did, I was just asking if we did not do this, because I thought we did. Maybe I read ahead. So what we did, yeah. But maybe we could just continue from there. So we have this, we have the same. Now we have another route for username, and then now that username will then did they call the other one index still? Okay. So if it's user, yeah, def user name, and then this has a route with these. So that takes a name, and this returns hello user, or maybe what do they say? So returns hello user. So this return h1, then it has hello So this is like string interpolation in Rails. The bracket will be replaced by whatever is here. So, yep. And I think maybe we need to run that and then go to process, not found. So this, just check what they had, slash username.
Because it was user and then the name.
There is
stroke user first, or that does not apply.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Sorry. User. Yeah, hello sets. And yep. And yeah. So with this, just to demonstrate, in case you have more than one thing you want to display, you may do that and add a string here. and then yeah, I think I need to reload that. Yeah, and that's just how it does the interpolation stuff, I think. Yeah. So um, yeah, it's just telling us. I don't remember what this mongoose meant, but it's telling us that if you have cloned the application's Git repository on GitHub, you can now run git checkout 2b and this to this version of the application. So so git status git create faster and then git checkout 2b and do so okay, so I think they want us to do the other way. They want us to do the app.run. I've forgotten how it was done. Yeah, but I think it's just the same thing that we did. Yeah, so we can just can lead on debug mode here, I think, from here.
Okay, to test the dynamic route, make sure the server is running, then navigate to localhost 5000 stroke user stroke dev. The application will respond with the personalized greeting using the name dynamic argument. Try using different names in the URL to see how the view function always generate the response based on the name given. Example 2.2.
Okay. Yep.
Should I go on?
Gideon.
Okay, so I'll go to debug mode. So
Yeah.
Flask applications can optionally be executed in debug mode. In this mode, two very convenient methods of the development server called the reloader and the debugger are enabled by default. When the reloader is enabled, Flask watches all the source code files of your project and automatically restarts the server when any of the files are modified. Having a server running with the reloader enabled is extremely useful during development because every time you modify and save a source file, the server automatically restarts and picks up the change. The debugger is a web-based tool that appears in your browser when your application raises an unhandled exception. The web browser window transforms into an interactive stack trace that allows you to inspect source code and evaluate expressions in place in the call stack. You can see how the debugger looks in figure 2.3. Okay. Yeah, so we
Oh,
have
here
that
it is.
on the next page. Yeah. So that's now the debugger in the web. So I think that displays when you have an error or any exception, it will display all. I think that's stack trace. in the web. Yeah, so by default, debug mode is enabled. To enable it, by default, debug mode is disabled. To enable it, set a Flask debug that environment variable to 1 before invoking Flask run. So we have that command there, export Flask app is equals to hello.py. Export then Flask debug, that's to set debug to true, and then you run Flask. Then you do Flask run. So you have that log output. Yeah. So I think, can we try that, Mike?
Yep. So, so you export, then export, Flask debug. Equals 1. Then Flask run. And then, yeah, it's raining outside. What a beautiful day. Yeah, so I don't know how to open that debugger thing.
I think you should go to root.
The root. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe it only comes when there are errors in the code.
Yeah, so I think we can try that division error. So 0, is it 1 divided by 0 or 0 divided by 1? So that it traces
division by 0.
Yeah.
So here, then I add another thing here and do one divided by 0.
Yeah.
So if we do users, yeah, so 0 division error. Division by 0. So when I click on it, it's jumping all over the place.
Yeah, I think there was a place they were saying.
This is the stack trace.
Yes. Scroll below.
So here.
Yeah.
Can you see this?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is the trace until the point where you have the division by 0. And that's why it breaks. So yeah. Okay. But if you don't have that, so they say if you're using Microsoft Windows, use set instead of export to set the environment variables. Then if you start your server with the app.run method, then Flask app and Flask debug environment variables are not used. To enable debug mode programmatically, use run debug app.run debug equals true. Never enable debug mode on a production server. The debugger in particular allows the client to request remote code execution, so it makes your production server vulnerable to attacks. As a simple protection measure, the debugger needs to be activated with a pin printed to the console by Flask run command. So they're saying in case we add the F Yeah, so if equals main up the run, then you do debug equals true, and then this should work for us. I think now we should run Python hello.py, and that will run it with the debug mode. So yeah, and then they're saying again, you should never enable it in production. Then as a simple protection mesh, the debugger needs to be activated with a pin printed onto the console by Flask run command. Yeah, maybe they'll show us that in the sections ahead. Then command line options. The Flask command supports a number of options to see what's available. You can run Flask --help or just Flask without any argument. Then if you run Flask --help, it gives all this stuff. So the export, and then nope, I think I just, then options, version, help, run, shell. So shell runs a shell in the app context. Run runs a development server. Version shows the version. Help shows the message, shows this message, and then it exists. And then the most useful commands are run and shell. Okay, then down here, the Flask shell command is used to start a Python shell session in the context of the application. You can use this session to run maintenance tasks or tests, or to debug issues. Actual examples where this command is useful will be presented later in several chapters. You are already familiar with the Flask run command, which, as its name implies, runs the application with the development web server. This command has many options. Flask run help, that will give you the options -hash, that's the hosts, then the port, reload, debugger, eager loading, always loader, with threads, help, and that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether that's clear to all of us. That help just reveals the help commands for the Flask run. Yep, and maybe I can just finish this, and then Ceci take up on the request response cycle.
Cool.
Yeah, so the host argument is particularly useful because it tells the web server what network interface to listen to for connections from the clients. By default, Flask development web server listens to connections on localhost, so only connections originating from the computer running the server are accepted. The following command makes the web server listen for connections on public network interface, enabling other computers in the same network to connect as well. So Flask run host 000. So it will serve it at 000. It will serve it at 0005000. The web server should now be accessible from any computer in the network at HTTP ABCD, where ABCD is the IP address of the computer running the server in your network. The reload, no reload debugger, and no debugger options provide a greater degree of control on top of the debug mode setting. For example, if debug mode is enabled, no debugger can be used to turn off the debugger while keeping debug mode and the reloader enabled. Yeah, so yeah, I think you can just do Flask run dash reload or dash debug. I don't know whether you can use all of them together so that you just have Flask run dash reload dash no reload dash debugger and no debugger. I don't know. Yeah, I think that if that's clear, yes, you can pick on request response.
Okay, now that you have played with the basic Flask application, you might want to know more about how Flask works its magic. The following sections describe more of the design aspects of the framework, application, and request context. When Flask receives a request from a client, it needs to make a few objects available to the view function that will handle it. A good example is the request object, which encapsulates the HTTP request sent by the client. The obvious way in which Flask would give a view function access to the request object is by sending it as an argument, but that would require every single view function in the application to have an extra argument. Things get more complicated if we consider that the request object is not only the only object that view functions might need to access to fulfill a request. To avoid cluttering view functions with lots of arguments that may not be needed, Flask uses context to temporarily make certain objects globally accessible. Thanks to context, view functions like the following can be written.
So from Flask import request, and then we have the route, then user agent. Request does get user agent, and then your browser is the format user agent. Any questions about that? Yeah, also Gideon, I think last week we noticed that, for example, if you see, if we come by such a piece of code where they have example 2.2 and then they have the name of the file hello.py, this actually means that we go to the code and type, like this is some code that we need to be typing. But if we come by such an example like the one Cess has just encountered, and there's no file name that's written on it, I think it's just some code that it's just an example that we can read through and understand, and then maybe later I think they will come up with something that we can actually write down. Yeah. So just to make that clear.
Yeah, okay. So that means that, okay, so yeah, I've got what you've said. Now on this request context. So this from Flask import request. So this request will be globally available to all these view functions. So let's say I have
Yes.
a view function. So this def index, let's say def home. So I don't need to like pass the request to that view function. I just import it from top there and access it inside that function.
Yes. So yeah, I think that's how it works here. Because I think in other languages you'll have to pass it in your methods. For example, the index, I think even in Django you'll have to do, even after importing the requests, you'll have to pass it to your function. But this, I think it's just okay to call it from the function. Yeah.
I think this is better.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you can read you can read the next section so that we understand what they're saying.
To the next page, or I just continue from there.
Note how this view function.
Okay. Yeah. So note how in this view function, request is used as if it were a global variable. In reality, request cannot be a global variable. In a multi-threaded server, several threads can be working on different requests from different clients all at the same time. So each thread needs to see a different object in request. Context enable Flask to make certain variables globally accessible to a thread without interfering with the other threads. So a thread is the smallest sequence of instructions that can be managed independently. In, it is common for a process to have multiple active threads, sometimes sharing resources such as memory or file handles. Multi-threaded web servers start a pool of threads and select a thread from the pool to handle each incoming request. Oh, that's too much magic. Oh, okay, so to the next page. There are two contexts in Flask, an application context and the request context. Table 2.1 shows the variable exposed by each of these contexts. So in that table, you have variable name, context, and description. So variable name, current app. So the context is the application context. Description, the application instance of the active application. Then we have variable name G, context, it's in application context, an object that the application can use for temporary storage during the handling of a request. The variable is reset with each request. So request context. The request object, which encapsulates the contents of an HTTP request sent by the client. Session, request context. The user session, a dictionary of the application, a dictionary that the application can use to store values that are remembered between requests. Yeah, so I hope that's clear to everyone.
Yeah.
Should I finish all of it up to request
Okay, sure.
dispatch? Okay.
Sure.
So Flask activates or pushes the application and Flask activates or pushes the application and request context before dispatching a request to the application, and removes them after the request is handled. When the application context is pushed, the current app and G variables become available to the thread. Likewise, when the request context is pushed, request and session becomes become available as well. If any of these variables are accessed without an active application or request context, an error is generated. The four context variables will be covered in detail in this and later chapters. So don't worry if you don't understand why they are useful yet. The following Python shell demonstrate how the application context works. So from hello import app, from Flask import current app, and then current app.name, it raises that error, runtime error, working outside the application context. And then after that, we have app context is equals to app.app context. So we invoke app context function from that app. So app context dot push, and then if you say current app.name, you get the name of the app, I think, and then app context dot pop. So in this example, current app.name fails when there is no application context active, but becomes valid once an application context for the application is pushed. Note this is how an application context is obtained by invoking app.app_context on the application instance. Yeah.
Wow. That's about it.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, but they've said if you don't understand, we'll just still understand later. But I think it's I somehow get it,
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
it.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Says how about you?
Um,
So
uh, I've understood like part of it. Yeah, it's
Uh,
just a lot taken.
yeah, okay.
like what part is not so clear?
Okay, this part for okay, the Python shell session demonstrates how the Python context work. So like the first argument from hello import app. Are we assuming there's a file called hello
Yes.
file?
Yeah. So like here in this file,
Yep.
the hello.py. So this is how like the Python modules work. So this file is treated to be a module. So when they say from hello, they are calling this hello module, and then there's this variable up here that you created, like we created when we wanted to create the app decorators. Yeah. So from hello import app, this is what they're importing, and then from Flask import current app. So current app, I think this comes with Flask, and what they're trying to demonstrate is that when you don't have your context pushed, you cannot just do current app.name, and because it's outside the application context. So you have to create an app context and then push that context and then try getting current app.name. That's when you are able to get the name of the app. So actually the name of the app also is just the name of the file that we are dealing with here, the name of the module.
Ah, gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah.
And to add on top of
Yeah.
that, if you look at
Yeah.
that table 2.1, we have that variable name current app, and it's in which context? Application context. The description is the application instance of the active application.
Yeah.
So I think from this shell, our active application is that app from the module hello, I think.
Okay. One more question.
Yeah.
From that table, we can see the projects. There's application context, and then there's a request context. There's that line that we do at the start of the line from Flask import app or from Flask import request. That define the context.
You mean here?
Yeah.
I think the context is something that comes with Flask already defined, and I think it just separates. I'm not sure if I say it just separates concerns. I'm not sure if that makes sense. But when Flask comes, they tell us that there is already an application context defined and a request context defined. So the application context could be the currently running application. So, and then the request is when a request is made to another, a request is made through a URL. When you do a request through a URL, that's when you enter the request context. I'm not sure if that's the case or if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Yeah, so current app is within the application context. So when we are running the, like when we import the from Elo import app, so we expect that from this app that we have, we expect that we'll have a current app which is in the context of the application that can tell us the name of the application that we are running. And then they're saying that you can push it and pop it so that you can push the application that you want into the context. The significance of this is still not very clear because they're saying we will learn it later on. But yeah, I don't know whether Gideon, you have something to add?
Not for now.
Okay. Yeah, so we are going to request dispatching. Did we read this? In this example, current applet name first when there is no application context active. Yeah, okay, yeah. So maybe I read the request dispatching. When the application receives a request from a client, it needs to find out what view function to invoke to service it. For this task, Flask looks up the URL given in the request in the application's URL map, which contains a mapping of URL to view functions that handle them. Flask builds this map using the data provided in the app.route.decorator, in the app.decorator, or the equivalent non-decorator version app.addURL rule. So yeah, we saw last week we can use both the decorator or app.addURL to add routes to views, to add routes to view functions or something. Yeah, to see what the URL map is in a Flask application looks like. You can inspect the map created for hello.py in the Python shell. Before you try this, make sure you have virtual environment activated, and then we can do from hello import app. Let's just do that. We did not do the other. So maybe we need to run Python first. If I just did from hello, if I just did from hello import app, I will get an error. Yeah.
You need to be in a shell, Flask shell.
Yeah, that's in a Flask shell. Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be Flask run dash shell.
No, I think it's just Flask shell.
Okay. Exit. Yeah, that makes sense. And from hello, then the same update URL map. Then so we have username and this maps to the user model. I think I'm not sure. Options get head. So yeah, what do they say? Yeah, so if you do that, the slash, that's the first one, and the username routes were defined by the app route decorators in the application. Static route is a special route added by Flask to give access to static files. You will learn more about these static files in chapter 3. The head options get elements shown in the URL map are the request methods that are handled by the routes. HTTP specifications defines that all requests are issued with the method, which normally indicates what action the client is asking the server to perform. Flask attaches methods to each route so that different requests methods sent to the same URL can be handled by different view functions. The head and options methods are managed automatically by Flask. So in practice, it can be said that in this application, the three routes in the URL map are attached to the get method, which is used when the client wants to request information such as a web page. You will learn how to create routes for other request methods in chapter 4. Okay, I think that's just speaking about the RESTful routes or something. So the HTTP methods, I guess. Yeah. Okay, we are already at the top of the hour. I don't know if you want to continue. And
I have to go.
Oh, okay. So maybe we can leave it at this and then start from that next week.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, guys, for coming. And yeah, see you next week.
Yeah, bye.
Okay, bye.
Nice to meet you, Gideon. Bye.
Yeah, bye.